Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to our witnesses. Just a brief note, even if the current funding bill stalls or is not passed that would fund the Department of Homeland Security, the department has an extraordinary amount of money at its disposal right now because it was funded during the big tax bill that my Republican colleagues passed last summer. So I just want the American people to be clear about that. Mr. Lyons, DHS officers have killed 2 American citizens in Minnesota this year. What were their names?
Whose names, ma'am?
The 2 American citizens who were killed by ICE DHS officers in Minnesota. What were their names?
Renee Good and Alex Preddy.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say their names out loud, because so far this morning, as well as in 3 hours of testimony on Tuesday before a House committee, you failed to say their names a single time. Why?
Ma'am, I didn't neglect their names. I was answering the question. And ma'am, to your point, I did give my condolences to the family and requested to meet them personally to give my condolences on behalf of the officers and agents involved.
Well, Renee Good and Alex Preddy were human beings, and they're dead. Before they died, they had families and friends who loved them and were loved by. And it seems to me that too many at ICE have lost sight of the fact that they are interacting with real people, not nameless, faceless numbers or political targets. When we dehumanize our fellow human beings, that's when these kinds of tragedies happen. Now, Mr. Lyons, were Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists?
Ma'am, while that investigation's ongoing, to my knowledge, no.
So to your knowledge, no.
With the information, I can't speak to it because it's an ongoing investigation, and we will make everything transparent, which I've already committed to at the last hearing. But
so in your testimony on Tuesday, you said that you don't want to comment on these ongoing investigations because you don't want to, quote, impede or, quote, bias the investigation. Is that what you said? Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So Secretary Noem and Stephen Miller have called Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists. So did Secretary Noem and Stephen Miller's comments impede or bias the investigations?
Ma'am, I don't want to comment on what comments they made. That's their comments. But again, I don't want to put my finger on the scales of the investigation.
Well, I understand you don't speak for them, and I'm not asking you to. I'm asking whether having the Secretary of Homeland Security and the President's Homeland Security Advisor call the subjects of an ongoing investigation domestic terrorists, whether their doing that impedes or biases those investigations.
Ma'am, again, thank you for saying that I don't represent them. I just think I can't speak to that.
But you don't speak for them.
Because I don't know what information was presented to them at that time. So again, I don't want to.
Look, your testimony doesn't make any sense. If it would impede or bias the investigations for you to say right now, when you know a lot more than we did right after the shootings, whether Renee Good or Alex Preddy were domestic terrorists, if you saying that today would impede or bias the investigations, then why wouldn't it impede or bias the investigations for Secretary Noem and Stephen Miller to say the same thing about the same people?
Any comments that are made publicly, privately, text, email up, or Instagram post, whatever, is gonna put a bias on the information.
Okay. So that is important. So I take it that you are saying that Secretary Noem and Stephen Miller were wrong to say what they said.
No, ma'am. Again, I can't speak to them, but what I'll just say to is, again, career law enforcement officer, myself and Mr. Scott, we won't speak to those type of things because we don't want to put our...
Are you not kind of just being straightforward here and saying what's obvious because you're worried that if you do, you'll be fired?
No, ma'am.
The fact that you're unwilling to admit that Secretary Noem and Stephen Miller were wrong to say what they did, that they impeded and biased the investigation, is indicative of the complete failure of leadership at DHS and at all levels of this administration. Now, I want to move on to one other issue. Are you aware that ICE has identified a commercial warehouse in Merrimack, New Hampshire as a site for a new detention center?
Yes, ma'am.
So the town of Merrimack wasn't consulted about this plan, but when they eventually heard about it, town leaders wrote to Secretary Noem voicing their concerns and oppositions to the plan. And I have shared those concerns with DHS. Now, my colleague, Senator Wicker from Mississippi, expressed similar concerns about a proposed ICE facility in his state. ICE has now canceled that Mississippi project. So will ICE similarly cancel the New Hampshire project based on these concerns and local opposition?
No, ma'am. Actually, DHS has worked with Governor Ayotte, has spoke to the governor about economic impact. We did provide an economic impact summary.
And when exactly did you speak with Governor Ayotte? Because until recently, she said she didn't know anything about it.
DHS officials, ma'am, spoke within the past weeks, but I can take that as a get back and get that exact time for you.
Let me be very clear. The people of Merrimack, their leadership, do not want this ICE facility in their community. And I think I can safely say that I have yet to find a Granite State community that does. Their worries go from the concerns about the way ICE is operating detention facilities to the fact that they will lose significant property tax value to their community. They have not been consulted. We have a long tradition of local control and participation in New Hampshire, and we expect that you will be sitting not just with the governor, but with local officials so that they can understand what the impact will be on their community. There are also significant concerns about the way ICE is operating some detention centers, the fact that measles outbreaks are happening in some of them. I would hope that I would get the same treatment that Senator Wicker got, which is to say the town doesn't want the detention center, so please cancel it. And I would expect that my partisan affiliation shouldn't make any difference to that determination. Thank you, Mr. Chair.